Atit, good to
Yeah,
see you, brother.
uh, I'm barely remembering the question I had in mind, so I'll put it this way. I think part of me thinks I'm really getting this, and another part of me says, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. And there's some place in the middle that I'm thinking the essence of what you're saying is what you said in the very beginning. It's the space that holds all of this that is the place to be. And I'm thinking, and you can tell me if what I'm saying makes any sense to you, that meditation is being in that space that holds all of this, the right, the wrong, the good, the bad, the black, the white. It's all held within that space. And somehow meditation can find uh, a taste of that space. Does any of that make sense to
It
you?
does. It does. Yes, it does. Yeah,
So
meditation is a way of entering that space and then finally of recognizing that you are that space.
hmm,
So there's a kind of switching of places that can happen after a while with meditation.
switching of places.
Places, yeah. So you are the meditator going there to contact, see, recognize the whole. And at some point, there can be a recognition that you're the whole and that the meditator is in you. So it's as if the meditator and what's being meditated on switch places. That's like with the beginning. I said that that you know I didn't embody silence. Silence embodied me. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So to the degree that people recognize silence in my presence, it doesn't have much to do with me. It has to do with silence using me and also speaking directly to the person who's recognizing the silence. It's real. It's so when we meditate, we're meditating and yeah, exposing ourselves to the space in which everything is arising, like you were saying. And at a certain point, there's a clarity that sees that we are the space in which everything's arising, including the body and thoughts and the mind and the sense of I and feelings and all of that, that we are that space.
But is it also true that the only way this side of things we can comprehend any of this is through concepts, but we have to know that we're not seeing the reality as it is, we're seeing the concepts that we have in our minds of what we're experiencing.
If you see that what's being experienced is concepts and that you don't actually see reality, then that's what it means to see reality.
It's like we're saying, seeing reality through a particular filter.
When you say we're seeing reality through a particular filter, it means you're seeing beyond the filter because you're seeing that it's an illusion. And seeing that it's an illusion is all that you can see. And that's all there is to what arises. This is, you've heard that in Advaita, that the world is an illusion. You've heard that in Buddhism, the world is an illusion. That's what it means. It doesn't mean, it means the clarity, the recognition that it's conceptual, that it's all conceptual. And you can say, we don't really know what it's like. But even to say that is part of the illusion. What does that even mean? What it's really like? Because that is itself a conceptual thing, that it's really like something. We can see that all we see is conceptual. And we can see in that sense that if we take the conceptual as what is, that it's illusory. It's actually not the way it is. That seeing is clarity indeed. And that seeing is not conceptual. It's seeing. It's described conceptually, but it's seeing. And you can say, oh, but I don't see the way it really is. That is still conceptual, that there's a way that it really is. It impossible to talk. Impossible to, because it is a way, there is a way that it really is that we'll never know, but we don't have any concept of what that is. So maybe there is nothing that that's referring to. It's like you could say conceptual mind is what forms the non-existent. But we can't say whether the non-existent exists in some way that we're not aware of or not. I remember getting like a kind of a of this when I was underwater at night and I had a flashlight. And the flashlight, there was a little world in that flashlight. You could see fish and stuff, right? But it was just darkness everywhere else. So it was like, oh, what's in that flashlight is as if, in that moment I went, oh, it's as if it comes into existence there. I mean, you can't really say if there's anything over there because you can only see with the flashlight. So you bring the flashlight there and then you can see something. But you can't say if you brought it into existence by bringing it there. Like, what is there? There's pure potentiality. Could say that, but I don't know what that is. I don't know anything about it.
What happens when you're on a hallucinogenic like psilocybin, and then all of a sudden, like, oh, so it can look like that.
Right,
This is
exactly.
not familiar to me, but
Right,
I'm accepting that this is what it is right now.
right.
It's not the whole thing.
Well, that's part of the value of those, especially, I mean, is that they can show you how relative your usual way of seeing things is. And it's not that they tell you the truth. It's just that they tell you, well, there's many ways of experiencing
Right. I get
conceptual
it.
reality,
Yeah.
right? So, it's like, oh, you can see it from this perspective, that perspective, and that just relativizes everything. And we could talk more about that. It's a longer conversation. But yeah, ultimately, it's beyond all concepts. Ultimately, everything that we're aware of is conceptual, or organized conceptually. Um, And seeing that is already transcending concepts. So that is truth. So you can't say you don't, I mean, you can say it. You can say that you don't really know how it is, but to say such a thing implies that that's true, that you do know something, that you don't know how it really is, right? So it's truth. You've recognized the truth that reality is beyond concepts.
And with that, just knowing that there are layer after layer after layer of this whole reality, and
Right.
infinite
See,
way that I could get the whole thing.
well, that's right. And so if you see that it's an infinite regress, that it's continuously like that, like fractal. You just keep going, you keep going. You see that as far as the conceptual world or the world of experience. Then what there is to do, you could say, um, from my perspective, from the perspective of Papaji and Ramana Maharshi and Buddha and many people, is to stop that. Is to stop that. It's not about knowing that way. So again, like the word silence, another word that's used that way, like silence and here and nowness, it's a word that's not what the word actually is usually used for. One of those words is um, no, knowledge. So the way that knowledge or jnana is used in Advaita by Papaji is not knowledge of something else, because that's what all conceptual knowledge is. It's treating experience like you are going to understand it. So it's dualistic knowledge. But knowledge in the sense of jnana, in the sense of in Advaita, is just knowing, which means you stop. You're not trying to, and you stop because you have an insight that the more you try to understand, that's endless. Trying to understand is endless, right? You could say understanding is endless, or you could say trying to understand is endless. But endless implies it's more than it's just continuous, right? It's just going to continuous like fractals. They're just going to go on and they'll just be continuous. So stop. And when you stop, you are it rather than knowing it. And that's true knowledge. True knowledge is being. Being is being it.
So is that what the breath does when you're in the midst of an extreme challenge or problem, and someone you're talking to said, okay, stop, take a breath? Is that breath, the stopping, is that relate
Stop
to handle that?
everything.
Mhm.
Stop reaching out to understand. That may be a small version of it, what you're saying, but it's now stop trying to figure it out. See, the thing about the affirmation of stop trying to figure out, stop doing it, let go, just be here now, whatever, stop, drop it, all of that language. is, and you're familiar, Osho used to use this kind of language forever. I mean, just drop it, stop, and all that. Um, it's, it, it, the effect is different if there's, whether or not, depending on whether or not there's insight into what you spoke about being endless. If you think that there really is something to get from understanding that is necessary for me before I drop the mind, and you stop, it'll be a temporary thing. You might stop and have an experience, but you'll go right back again because you don't really believe that the stop is anything but a kind of a drug. It's like, well, I was free for a little while, but now let me get back to business. If you realize, really, the more you actually realize that conceptual reality is illusory, that it actually is endless, and that it's endless because it's an endless generator. It is endless because it's constantly generating, and that's what it does. So there's no end to conceptual. All you're doing is cutting things up and understanding them a different way and a different way and a different way. That's not going to add up to real knowing because you're constantly cutting things in two, especially the knower and the known. And that's the fundamental cut from the very beginning. I and life. I'm trying to understand life. I am trying to understand life. It cannot succeed because I is life. It's not something else. Everything that you are is life. There's not a smidgen of you that isn't life. So how can you proceed like I am now going to understand life? It's as if it's something other than you. And because it's you, that's what stopping is. It's you. There's nothing to understand that way. How do you understand it? You be it. That's understanding it. That's real knowledge. That's you're not separate from it. That's you're a channel for it. That's the end. That's no mind. That's the nature of mind. It's all of it. That's stopping. But if it's like, I'm going to stop and now I got a breath and now I got something and now let me continue on my way, then it's like an experience that you carry in your back, but it's not recognizing what the real case is, that there is nothing to do. There's nothing to understand.
So
There is nothing to understand.
at that point, I
Now,
can say I don't know.
at that point, you don't know. At that point, you are knowledge. It isn't that there's some knowledge out there and you don't know it. You are all knowledge. In other words, this is a thing that's happening in you.
Oh,
See,
that
it's because otherwise it's always splitting, it's making it outside, and then there's always something to know. And that's fine. That's okay. That's what is, science is based on that, and now everything's based on that. That's fine. It's fine to do it. But it's just exploring yourself. It's not doing exploring anything else. And it's all it's doing is exploring possibility. And that's endless. You can keep shuffling the deck and laying out the cards another way and another way and another way, and wow, it's endless. Wow, it's endlessly generated. The nature of mind is endlessly generating experience. So, and that's what we are. That's the whole thing. But the idea that there's satisfaction or that you'll figure it out or you'll get something from it or all of that, as long as you still believe that, then even if you have experience of stopping, you're going to go back to that because that's where it really is. But, and now I'm not saying it's a zero-sum game, like you either get it or you don't get it. It's not so much that, but you do, but getting that you are by nature it. So stop. and be the knower that way. It's
That's
not
very
grasping at concepts,
that's very helpful,
is it?
because
Good.
what I resonated with mostly is that it's not knowing or not knowing something, it's knowing I am the knowing.
Right.
That resonated with me.
Good. Yeah. You are the knowing. You are knowledge itself, not knowledge of particular things. You don't need to hold on to that, but knowledge itself. It's another way. I mean, there's so many ways of saying this, Atit. I mean, it really, none of the words actually are it, but it's pointing to something. It's really what it's pointing to is that you're already home. You're at home already. You could say, we can use all kinds of words. We can use, like home, which is great. You can use every safety, that you are always already safe. There's nothing more safe than death. There's nothing more safe than whatever situation. In other words, no matter what, you're safe. You're at home. You're not an accident. You are your being itself. You could say it in the small way. You could say your body, your mind, your emotions, all are made of the stuff of the universe. You could say it that way, from a kind of small way of talking. And that's beautiful. There it is. I'm one with the universe. But then, of course, there's a universe that's outside of you that you're part of. That's one way of talking. It's a kind of dualistic way, but it works. It's to get there from that. You can enter in through that. It's an embodied human identity way of talking. You also, though, another way of talking is to enter the other way and say the whole universe is in the space that you are. You could say, the sense fields are arising in the space, and the sense
So
of yourself that's in there is arising.
now I'm wondering, will I after will I ever get this? And the answer is more of like the knowing. I am the getting.
Yes, you are it. And whether you get it or not, you are this. And the getting is you. And this is you. Hmm. I mean, this is like at the heart of Ramana Maharshi. Who am I? Rather than the rest of the universe. Who am I? I mean, he used to say things like, people will come to him and say, "Well, wait a minute. It says in the Vedas that the universe is created this way, and it says in the Puranas that it's created this way, and this Veda says that." And it's like, it comes out of that God, or this God made it that way, and that. He says, "Look, all of those things, they're just spoken to people so that they'll be able to quiet their mind." And they're just like, okay, now I got the answer. Thank you very much. And they bring their attention to deeper things. Like, what are they? Who am I? Well, that's how he dealt with knowledge and conceptual experience and all of that. And very, very lightly. He didn't, well, let me explain the philosophical things. It really meant this and it's that and this. He was like, it's just given to people like candy so they'll stop crying. Now, okay, good. You got that, son? Now come over here. And then walk him over. Let's look at this other thing. It's kind of like, okay, God, no, God makes it all. And he gives it to you. And it's like, and it's like this and like that. So good. Okay, good. Now let's look at who are you? What's the nature of what is this? Like, So now you can say, "Oh, yes, it's the Big Bang Theory. It works this way. We figured it out. It's all good. So okay, you good? Yeah, okay, good. Now who are you? You know?
I wouldn't know how to answer that really.
Well, that's the only question worth asking, really. What's what are you? So you don't answer it. You look, because the answer isn't gonna get you anything.
Right. It's kind of like a Zen koan.
That's another answer. It's it's, it is, but you don't get any credit for no extra credit for knowing it's like a Zen koan. It's just what are you? That's a better one. What are you? But see, it's more like um it's a pointer again. It's not a question for an answer. And yeah, in a way, it's like a Zen koan, but even that it's too loaded. Like, because simpler than that. It's not that you'll get, oh, wow, necessarily. It's more, you will, but it's not about looking for that. It's about what is the nature of your very existence? Like, what is it now to be aware of your thoughts? What is it now to be aware of the sensations of your body? What is it now to be aware of the computer in front of you? What is it now to hear the sound of my voice? What is this? What are you? And not to have an answer, but to just go, what? Just to sit in the place where it's happening and go,
So asking is not to get an answer. Asking
it's to
is to
look.
illuminate.
No, it's to look. Asking is so you'll look.
So where I haven't looked before.
Look to where, to who is aware of existence, of of the sensations of your body, of the thoughts, of what is happening now. What's aware of the thoughts now? What's aware of the thoughts of a teat? What's aware of the sensations of a teat? What is that? That's all. It's always a pleasure, Atit. You're so sweet. I really appreciate you so
Thank
much.
you, as
It's
I
so
do.
good to see you.
You
Uh,
know that.
Same here. Yeah. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Mm. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for satsang. It was a pleasure to see all of you.